15 years after 7-year-old Kairen Horman disappeared from a Portland elementary school.
Years ago today, when 19-year-old Jason Jolkowski walked from his home to catch a ride to work, he has not been seen since.
16 years ago, on this date, a Benson man disappeared without a trace.
They went out and he was having exactly the same kind of night that he always has. You know, there was just nothing about it that was out of the ordinary whatsoever.
Some disappear without leaving a trace. Others show up with no past. These are the most mysterious people you'll ever come across. So stay tuned.
An online community of some very concerned people has proven against the odds that indeed no man is an island.
He walked nearly the entire Appalachian Trail without a phone, ID, or even a real name. Just a kind smile and the nickname Mostly Harmless. For months, other hikers remembered him as polite, peaceful, and off the grid. But in 2018, his body was found curled up in a yellow tent in Florida's Big Cypress Preserve.
We just found a dead body.
Okay. Are you on the trail?
No cause of death, no traceable identity. The mystery took over the internet. A Facebook group, online sleuths, and DNA specialists all stepped in. And after 2 years of searching through thousands of missing persons, someone finally recognized him.
You have a look at the face of every white man.
Vance Rodriguez, a brilliant but troubled programmer from Louisiana. Turns out, no one was looking for him. He'd cut ties, left behind pain, and started over on the trail. Friendly to strangers, distant to those who knew him. A mystery in plain sight. But thanks to a group of complete strangers, he got his name back. Unsolved no more.
Crime Watch Daily's Billy Jensen just met up with one man who's using his really unique set of skills to help police solve crimes.
Back in 1979, in a quiet part of upstate New York, police came across a young girl who had clearly been through something terrible. No name, no ID, no one came forward. They called her Caledonia Jane Doe. For 35 years, she stayed a mystery. Until a guy named Carl Koppelman decided to step in. Carl was just an accountant who'd lost his job and had some extra time.
Nobody deserves to be unidentified. Everybody deserves a name.
He started getting into true crime forums online and realized that some of the sketches used to ID missing people didn't really capture them properly. Carl was also an artist, so he thought, why not help out? He began reworking those drawings, adding more lifelike details. One of the faces that really stayed with him was Jane Doe. He redrew her many times over the years, even using autopsy photos to make sure he got it right. Then finally, in 2015, he spotted a new missing persons listing from Florida. Carl instantly recognized her face, and he was right. Her name was Tammy Jo Alexander. After decades, Tammy finally got her name back. Her family and friends got the closure they deserved. Carl, meanwhile, kept drawing because there are still so many others waiting to be found.
I came to the realization that a lot of these forensic drawings weren't really accurate.
Mystery man identified.
For decades, the mystery of the Somerton man has baffled the state.
For over 70 years, no one knew who the man found on Somerton Beach in Adelaide back in 1948 really was. People just called him the Somerton Man. He was found sitting against a seawall, dressed neatly, and no one came forward to claim him. Inside his pocket, there was a tiny rolled-up piece of paper with the words Tamam Shud, which means it's over in Persian. That strange clue sparked a lot of wild stories. Some even thought he might have been a spy caught up in Cold War tensions. But now, thanks to DNA and some serious detective work using genealogy, scientists believe the mystery man was Carl Charles Webb, an electrical engineer from Melbourne. He apparently vanished after leaving his wife in 1947, and there was never a record of what happened to him after that. In 2021, researchers got a new chance to look into the case when his body was carefully exhumed. They used his hair to trace his family tree. One major clue, some of his belongings were marked with the name T. Keene, who turned out to be connected to his family. Even with his name known now, how he ended up on that beach is still a bit of a mystery.
Down in the family tree, like a Sudoku puzzle, until you get, the right configuration.
Shock to the system.
Been a shock to the system.
In 1977, a young woman's body was found in Everett, Washington, but no one knew who she was. For decades, she was only known as Precious Jane Doe. Her real name was Lisa, but because she had been adopted, identifying her wasn't easy. Her remains had been stored all these years, and recently, scientists found a way to get DNA from a strand of her hair, something that was never thought possible before. The breakthrough came from a technique first used on dinosaur bones.
A scientist that worked with dinosaur bones developed a method of getting autosomal DNA out of hair.
That DNA profile helped connect the dots and eventually led investigators to Lisa's biological family. But because of the adoption, her identity couldn't be confirmed right away. Her adoptive family had to unseal old records to help finish the puzzle. Turns out, Lisa had gotten into a serious altercation back in 1977, and the person involved had already served time. Her family, now living in Hood River, Oregon, said it was heartbreaking to learn what happened, but also comforting to finally have answers. After more than 40 years, Lisa will now be laid to rest with the people who loved her.
He got life in prison, I believe, but they let him out after 26 years.
Julie Doe cold case.
Pamela Lee Walton was found on the side of County Road 474 back in 1988.
Do you remember the cold case of Julie Doe from Florida back in 1988? Nearly 4 decades later, detectives finally cracked it, and her name was Pamela Lee Walton. That's thanks to some intense work by the Lake County Sheriff's Office and the DNA Doe Project. Pamela's remains were found near County Road 474, but identifying her took years. First, she was thought to be a cisgender woman until DNA testing in 2015 revealed she was biologically male. That changed everything. Investigators had to start from scratch, and things got even more complex when they learned Pamela had been adopted. Still, genealogists clocked over 1,500 hours to trace her roots. They finally connected her to biological relatives who had no idea she even existed. It's a powerful reminder of how evolving science and dedicated people can bring long-awaited answers, even decades later.
That's when we found out that our victim was not a biological female, but was instead a biological male.
Disappearance of Rebecca Cororeium.
Happened to Rebecca?
We've seen CCTV footage of her making a phone call. We don't know what was in the phone call.
In March 2011, 24-year-old Rebecca Cororeium vanished from the Disney Wonder cruise ship, where she worked as youth staff. She was last seen at 5:45 a.m., looking distressed during a phone call in the crew area. Moments later, she walked off and was never seen again. What followed was a bizarre mix of minimal investigation and unanswered questions. The ship was in international waters off Mexico, but only one investigator from the Bahamas, a country the ship was registered under, was sent. He reportedly spent just a day on board. Rebecca's parents were told she may have been swept overboard by a wave, but they didn't buy it. Her personal belongings were returned, minus her bank card. And weeks later, someone tried to access her account. Even her Facebook password was changed after she disappeared. To this day, no trace of her has ever been found. And yeah, it really feels like someone didn't want it found.
Belongings and her passport, and that was kind of like, right, well, she's gone.
Cory McKe.
He went out and he was having exactly the same kind of night that he always has. You know, there was just nothing about it that was out of the ordinary whatsoever.
Cory McKe was a 23-year-old RAF gunner who vanished without a trace after a night out in Bury St. Edmunds, Suffolk, on September 24th, 2016. He'd been out drinking with friends, something totally normal for him. There was nothing unusual about the night at all. He left a club called Flex around 1 a.m. after having a bit too much to drink. From there, he grabbed some food at a takeaway he regularly visited, then was seen on CCTV eating it while sitting in a doorway. Witnesses saw him asleep there for a while. At 3:25 a.m., Cory walked into a loading bay area behind some shops, and that was the last confirmed sighting of him. He was never seen leaving that spot, and no trace of him has ever been found since. When he didn't show up for duty on Monday, the RAF raised the alarm. Despite a huge investigation involving military and civilian police, search teams, and forensic experts, nothing has ever been found to explain what happened next. No evidence, no links to other cases, nothing.
Cory is funny, very happy, positive.
Jason Jolkowski.
Today, when 19-year-old Jason Jolkowski walked from his home to catch a ride to work, he has not been seen since.
In June 2001, 19-year-old Jason Jolkowski vanished while walking just half a mile from his home in Omaha, Nebraska, to meet a coworker for a ride to work. He never showed up and was never seen again. Jason was a shy, kind-hearted teen who lived with his parents and younger brother. He had big dreams of becoming a radio DJ, was deeply religious, and had just landed a better-paying job that could help him return to college. On the morning of June 13th, Jason was last seen by his brother taking the trash cans in. Nothing seemed off. He then left the house carrying his work clothes, dressed for his shift. That short walk should have taken him 15 minutes, but when his coworker called saying he never showed up, things spiraled. His family thought he might have changed plans, but after hours passed, panic set in. Even worse, it took 10 days for police to seriously investigate, assuming he was a runaway. No security footage showed him at the school. His car was still at the repair shop, his bank account untouched, and he had no known issues in life. To this day, no trace of Jason has been found. It's one of Nebraska's most baffling disappearances.
16 years ago, on this date, a Benson man disappeared without a trace.
Mysterious vanishing.
15 years after 7-year-old Kairen Horman disappeared from a Portland elementary school.
Kairen Horman was just 7 years old when he went missing back in 2010, and it still doesn't make much sense. His stepmom dropped him off at Skyline Elementary School in Portland, Oregon that morning. She even took a photo of him proudly standing in front of his science project, wearing a CSI shirt. But after that, nothing. He never made it to his class, and when the school day ended, he wasn't on the bus either. His mom, Desiree Young, has spent the last 15 years holding on to hope and asking questions that still haven't been answered. She believes someone out there knows what happened.
I struggle because it's lost.
And now, after all this time, the case is getting a new look. Authorities are finally digitizing every part of the investigation, thousands of pages and photos, to let the FBI go through it all again with fresh eyes. Even though it's been a long time, Kairen's face and story are still very much with us.
He couldn't articulate what the problem was to me, but there was problems, clearly.
Fred the Head.
Next to a murder that's puzzled police in Staffordshire for 50 years.
This next case still baffles everyone, even after half a century. Back in March 1971, an off-duty cop in Burton-on-Trent was just out for a walk when he spotted a bit of bone sticking out of the ground. Turns out, it was a human skull. The man became known as Fred the Head, and to this day, no one knows who he was. He'd been buried in a shallow grave, hands and feet tied, wearing nothing but socks and a wedding ring. Forensics said he was around 5'8", reddish-brown hair, and had some serious dental work done. Police tried everything. Facial reconstructions, DNA tracing, you name it. Even with experts involved and national TV coverage, nothing ever matched. It's like he just disappeared from history. I mean, someone out there has to know who Fred was, right?
He's got short, reddish-brown hair, and he's got this underbite.
Xmores' deepest mystery.
In March 2002, a man's body was found on Exmoor, wrapped in plastic bags.
Now I want to take you guys back to March 2002, Exmoor National Park, England. A park ranger doing his morning rounds spots a pile of bin bags dumped near a quiet stretch of road. Honestly, nothing unusual. People often left rubbish there, sometimes even animal remains. But when those bags were opened at the kennels, something wasn't right. Inside were human remains. The police launched a full investigation, and what they uncovered only deepened the mystery. The body was wrapped carefully in a duvet, a green bed sheet, and plastic bags. Alongside it, a pair of Adidas shorts, some underwear, a white pillowcase, a stereo wire, and a 22-karat gold necklace engraved with a Quranic verse, often worn for spiritual protection. Forensic analysis revealed the man was between 20 and 30 years old, around 5'9", and likely of South Asian descent. Here's the twist. He probably came to the UK in the early 90s, lived here for several years, and may have passed away around 1999 or 2000. But his body wasn't found until 2002. Experts believe he may have been stored somewhere cold, possibly a freezer, before being left in the moorland. Police even created 3D reconstructions and a clay facial model, hoping someone might recognize him. They've cross-referenced over 2,000 missing persons. Nothing matched. To this day, no name, no clear motive, no suspect, just fragments of a life lost somewhere in Exmore.
As you said, 2002, the body of a male was found, and we have been unable to identify him from that point.
Still missing.
34 years without a sister. It was on this date in 2020.
It's been 4 years since Lauren Dumolo disappeared from Cape Coral, Florida, and her family is still waiting for answers. On June 19th, 2020, Lauren was reported missing after she didn't show up for a phone call with her sister, Cassie. That same day, her purse was found at a nearby park. Since then, there haven't been any major updates in the case. Her family is trying to stay hopeful, but they're also realistic. It's been a long time without any real clues. Cassie says that not knowing what happened is the hardest part. She remembers the good and silly moments with her big sister, from playful arguments in the mornings to hugging each other before school. That bond hasn't gone anywhere, even with all this time apart. The family still hopes Lauren will come back one day, in whatever way that may be. For now, they're holding on, one day at a time.
June 19th, that phone call never came, and 4 years later, I've never heard her voice again.
Oak Grove Jane Doe.
5 tugboat operators found another burlap package floating in the water about 6 miles away from where the torso had been found.
Back in April 1946, something really strange was discovered near the Willamette River in Oak Grove, Oregon. A few people spotted a burlap sack floating by the shore, and when they checked it out, they realized it wasn't just trash. Inside were a woman's remains and other things that led authorities to believe something serious had happened. Over the next few months, more sacks were found in different spots, each one adding more mystery to the case. Investigators could tell the woman had been around 5'3" with light brown hair and had probably been in her 40s. Some burn marks and other details made them think she had gone through a tough time. Forensic experts had a hard time even agreeing on her age. Several possible identities were considered, including women who had gone missing around that time, but none could be confirmed. The case, often referred to as the Oak Grove Jane Doe, remains unsolved to this day. And to make things even harder, the original evidence seems to have gone missing decades ago, making this one of Oregon's most puzzling cold cases.
The men explained to law enforcement that they had seen the package floating there for nearly a month.
The Oslo Plaza mystery. June 3rd, 1995. A woman checks into room 2805 at Oslo Plaza using the name Jennifer Fairgate. No ID, no credit card, and every label from her clothes removed. When staff finally knock on the door 3 days later to ask for payment, they hear a loud bang from inside. By the time security returns, she's gone, lying on the bed with a 9mm pistol in her hand and no real trace of who she was. Now here's where it gets really strange. The only clue left behind? A Citizen Aqualand dive watch. Rugged, military issued, and totally out of place for someone posing as a Belgian fashion type. Not exactly your average accessory. Forensics said she was about 30, not 21 like she wrote. Some say she was on the run. Others think she was a professional, maybe intelligence. Her behavior, the clothing changes, the wiped serial numbers, even the precise gaps in her whereabouts. It all reads like something from a spy novel. But after nearly 30 years, no one's claimed her. No family, no country, just that strange, quiet exit. Locked room, closed case, or not. Stranger at the motel. In 2001, a quiet young man showed up at a small motel in Amanda Park, Washington. He used the name Lyle Stevick, but that wasn't his real name. He'd come by bus and didn't have much with him, just a toothbrush, toothpaste, and some clothes. No ID, no luggage. He checked in, asked to switch rooms because it was too noisy, and mostly kept to himself. Someone spotted him pacing along the highway nearby, but no one thought much of it. The next day, staff found him in the room. He had closed the blinds, lined the closet with pillows, and left a note with some cash saying, "For the room." It was clear he didn't want to cause trouble. For years, no one could figure out who he was. He wasn't reported missing. His family just assumed he had chosen to stay away. In 2018, DNA and fingerprint testing finally gave him a name. He was 25, from Alameda County, California. His family chose not to share more details, and honestly, that's okay. It's a quiet, sad story, but one that stuck with a lot of people for a long time. Man from Torrid. In 1954, something super strange happened at Tokyo's Haneda Airport. A man arrived from Europe dressed sharp and confident. At immigration, he handed over a passport. But here's the weird part. The passport was from a country called Torrid. The officers were confused because no such country exists, but the man seemed just as confused. He insisted Torrid was a real place, located between France and Spain. He'd even been to Japan before, or so the stamps in his passport claimed. He spoke fluent French, some Japanese, and even had money from different European countries. When they called the company he said he was visiting, nobody had heard of him. Same with the hotel he said he booked. No records. The bank on his checkbook didn't exist either. The man kept saying everyone was mistaken and that his country had been around for centuries. Authorities held him in a hotel room overnight while they figured things out. But by morning, he was gone. The room was locked from the outside, and all his documents had vanished too. Some think he slipped into another world. Others say it's all just a story, but honestly, no one ever figured it out. Time traveler. Time travel always sparks curiosity, and the story of Sergei Ponomarenko is one of the strangest ones out there. In 2006, police in Kiev found a confused man wearing outdated clothes and holding a vintage camera. He claimed to be from 1958, and his Soviet-era ID matched that claim. Even more bizarre, he looked like he hadn't aged a day since then. He was taken to a mental hospital where a doctor developed the film from his old camera. The photos showed scenes from 1950s Kyiv and a mysterious bell-shaped object in the sky. One photo even showed Sergei himself, looking exactly the same. Sergei claimed the object in the sky had flashed brightly, and he suddenly found himself in modern Kyiv. But before anything could be proven, he vanished. Security footage showed him entering his hospital room, but never leaving. Investigators found that a man by that name did go missing in the 1950s, and his former girlfriend confirmed the timeline. She also revealed a strange postcard she received, allegedly from Sergei, dated 2050. Was it a hoax, a misunderstanding, or something we just can't explain yet? We may never know, but it definitely keeps the time travel debate alive. Brian Schaffer. In 2006, 27-year-old medical student Brian Schaffer vanished after a night out at the Ugly Tuna Saloon in Columbus, Ohio. He had been celebrating the start of spring break with his friend Clint Florence. Surveillance footage shows Brian entering the bar but never leaving. That was the last confirmed sighting of him. His girlfriend, Alexis Wagner, expected to fly with him to Miami days later. But Brian never showed. His phone, credit cards, and apartment were untouched. Extensive searches by police, including sniffer dogs, camera reviews, and river dredges, turned up nothing. One brief phone ring gave Alexis hope, but the provider later claimed it was a system glitch. Over time, theories emerged. Some believe he vanished on purpose, possibly overwhelmed by his mother's recent passing. Others suspect an accident at the construction site near the bar. A psychic even claimed his body was near a bridge, prompting a river search. The strangest part? No one has ever seen clear footage of him leaving the bar, and every other patron was accounted for. Brian's disappearance remains one of the most baffling missing persons cases in modern history. Nearly 2 decades later, we're still left asking, what really happened to Brian Schaffer? Hidden life. Back in 1970, something strange happened in Norway's Isdalen Valley, a place locals quietly nicknamed Death Valley because of past incidents there. A man and his 2 daughters were out hiking when they stumbled across a woman who seemed to have passed away in very unusual circumstances. What made it even weirder was the stuff around her. Burned things. A broken umbrella, and some jewelry carefully placed beside her, not on her. Now here's where things get more mysterious. Investigators found 2 suitcases linked to her. Inside, wigs, maps, glasses without prescriptions, and even coded notes. All the clothing had tags removed, and the woman had used fake names while traveling around Europe. At least 8 different identities. Some think she may have been involved in Cold War spying stuff, especially since Norway was pretty active in that scene back then. Despite some witnesses saying they saw her in Bergen before the incident, no one ever found out who she really was. Over the years, experts have tried using new science to learn more, but even now, no one has cracked the case. It's one of those unsolved stories that just sticks with you. The Gentleman Mystery. Back in July 1994, a police boat near Helagoland in the North Sea came across something unusual. A man floating near the water. No one knew who he was, but he looked like he might have been in his 40s or 50s. People started calling him the Gentleman, probably because of how he was dressed, in clothes mostly from Marks & Spencer, a tie, trousers, and a nice pair of Church & Cope shoes. Even his socks and undergarments were carefully chosen. He was quite tall, around 6'4" to 6'6", which is not something you come across every day. Experts also figured out that he might have spent time in either Northern Europe or even Australia, but the real mystery is how he ended up in the sea. Some old cobbler tools were found tied to his clothes, which raised a lot of eyebrows. They were made by a company in Bristol that shut down decades ago. Investigators are still trying to put the pieces together. A facial reconstruction was done, DNA was checked, but no solid leads have come up. It's one of those cases where the more you find, the more questions it brings. Mysterious Journey. On December 12, 2015, someone came across a deceased man on Saddleworth Moor, and nothing about it made sense. He had no ID, no phone, nothing that could explain who he was or what he was doing there. For a long time, people only knew him as Neil Dovestone, a name given based on the nearby Dovestone Reservoir. Turns out, his real name was David Litton, but even with that name, the mystery only got deeper. He had recently flown in from Pakistan, and the container found near him had both English and Urdu writing on it. There was even a titanium plate in his leg that's only available in Pakistan. His trip from London to Manchester, then to the quiet village of Greenfield, felt like it had a purpose, but no one knows what that was. Some even thought he might have been someone from a plane crash decades ago, but that was ruled out. What's clear is that David lived a very private life. He kept things separate, never talked much about what he was up to, and didn't let anyone get too close. Even the people who knew him didn't really know him, and that's what makes this story so hard to let go of. Missing at Cache. Rico Harris was once a rising star in the basketball world. He was tall, strong, and full of energy on the court, someone everyone thought was headed for the big leagues. But life off the court wasn't so simple. Growing up, things at home were rough, and even though he had big dreams, school didn't come easy for him. After bouncing between schools, teams, and different states, Rico ended up playing for smaller leagues and eventually joined the Harlem Globetrotters for a bit. By 2014, Rico had worked hard to get his life back on track. He had moved in with his girlfriend in Seattle and was planning a fresh start. Then one day, he started driving down to Los Angeles to visit his family, but somewhere around Yolo County, California, he vanished. His car was found near a place called Cache Creek, but Rico was nowhere to be seen. Some people think he got lost, others believe he just wanted to disappear. The truth? No one really knows, even today. The mystery of what happened to Rico Harris remains unsolved. It's a strange and sad story, but more than anything, It reminds us how complicated life can be, even for someone who seemed to have it all. And now, let us move on to our subscriber pick of the day. In June 2009, a gray-haired man arrived in Sligo, Ireland, calling himself Peter Bergman. He checked into a hotel, paid in cash, and wrote down a fake Austrian address. Over 4 days, CCTV captured him walking around town with a purple plastic bag, leaving full, returning empty. Not a single item from those bags was ever found. He mailed letters to unknown recipients, disposed of his belongings strategically, and avoided all traceable clues. On June 15th, he asked for a late checkout, carried his last bags out, then vanished to Ross's Point Beach. Witnesses saw him pacing barefoot, oddly calm, walking into the sea. The next day, his body was found on shore. No ID, no wallet, nothing. To this day, we still don't know who he really was or what he was running from.